So let's start. Today's webinar is The Family Tree and Heirs Property Rights, Connecting People, Land, and Legacy with panelist and board member Sam Cook and panelists Natalie and Nikki Jefferies. And our host today is Jamie Lewis. Jamie is the FHS's staff historian, and he is also the editor of our magazine, Forest History Today. Thanks to each of them. We're excited for the webinar. And now let me hand it over to you, Jamie.
Thanks, Tanya. As you said, today's webinar is The Family Tree and Heirs Property Rights, Connecting People, Land, and Legacy. Joining me today are Sam Cook, Nikki Jefferies, and Natalie Jefferies. The three of them all appear in a new documentary film called Family Tree, which is where we got our webinar title. Yeah, I'm that creative. But this film is so new, it's only now making the rounds on the film festival circuit. So do take go online and look for the film by Jennifer MacArthur. She's the director, and it is again called Family Tree. Just also want to say that we here at FHS participated in the making of the film. Sam is the executive director of the Forest Assets and the vice president of the Natural Resources Foundation of the College of Natural Resources at NC State University. That's got to be a really big business card you've got, Sam. And the former director of Forestry Center for Heirs Property Preservation. And as Tanya said, Sam is also a FHS board member. Now, Natalie and Nikki Jefferies are inheritors of a family legacy rooted in the land. Through their involvement in the film Family Tree, they are shining a light on the importance of family forests, and they hope to inspire others to embrace their role as custodians of the earth and to recognize the profound impact that individual actions can have on the collective well-being of our planet. So first, we're going to hear from Sam. He's going to give us an overview of Heirs Property and Heirs Property Rights. Then we're going to show a clip from the film. And then we'll bring Nikki and Natalie back in, and you'll meet them in the film clip. And then we'll hear more about their story. So, Sam?
Thank you, Jamie, and thank you, Tanya, and the rest of the Forest History Society staff. Bring gratitude, especially representing the board of directors, but most importantly, just in general, what we do as a whole around this work of heirs property. But I must start off by saying I'm not an attorney, nor do I want to represent one. Specifically in the forestry sector, and want to make sure I stay there as it relates to the work that we're getting ready to talk about. I'm honored to be here with Natalie and Nikki, and specifically to be involved in the film. I've known these two young ladies for a while, and now it seems like they're family and friends. But most importantly, I work with them on the land, sort of representing them as a forester, but also as a friend to help lead them and guide them in a way that they get the questions answered. We put them in educational resources and connect them with other people out there that can help facilitate what their needs are as it relates to managing and owning land. I don't want to spend any time taking the whole subject here today, but I do want to give us grounded on what is heirs property. So when we think about heirs property, we want to look at, it refers to property passed down informally from generation to generation, sometimes known as fractured, tangled, or clouded. So the original landowner dies without a will, or the will was not probated or administered. State laws determine who inherits your land. Can potentially include multiple generations and hundreds of relatives. When you think about that, you have a lot of people tied to the land that all have a single interest in the title of that land. No single heir has clear title to the entire parcel. Each owner has an interest in the entire asset rather than each heir having their own piece of the asset. Each heir has equal rights to full use and possession. Is legally responsible for paying taxes or other property-related expenses. So if money is owed, everyone should be entitled to pay, but not all of that happens from time to time. It can be transferred by gift or sale, their interest to another heir or non-heir. So you can lose your land in this aspect of the business. It could seek physical division of the property, which means that it can be divided amongst the heirs and separated and put deeds on it for them. They must agree to any major decisions about the property. Now think about that as with the family that you operate with today. Do you feel like you can agree with everyone, or your whole family can agree with any one thing? So this is a major challenge for heir property owners. So let's think about some common terms for heirs property ownership. It's without a clear title. We talked about clouded titles or fractured land structures. Sometimes we hear more commonly as tangled, but probably the most important one that I hear often is family land. And the heirs own their property without a clear title. When we talk about what we just stated, family land, fractured, tangled, or clouded, it restricts them being able to manage the property and use the assets to accumulate wealth. So most heir property owners tend to have a hard time managing collectively, generating income, or even making a decision on how we should move forward with the ownership. If you do not decide how you want your estate to be divided, the state will have something on file for you that helps you identify processes, and it will be there to help you decide going forward on how they separate. If you die without a will, there's several things to be considered, specifically around children, the spouse, the inheritance piece, how spouses and children are collectively looked at by state, a spouse and a parent. All these things are factors that you have to think about as you look at not the ownership of the land, and there's no will or plan to separate the estate. We talk about these things in a way that I don't want you to walk away from here today thinking that Natalie and Nikki own heir property, or even they inherited heir property. They're still doing a little bit of research on the ownership structure, but when I met with them, they talked about the land with clear title. All their needs is they wanted to make sure that they were managing the land in a way that they can generate income, keep it in the family. And so part of our work today is not centered on everyone that has heirs property, but is really focused on the intent that land ownership has many different structures. I separate land ownership into two categories: clear title and heir property, which is the fractured land. So when we talk to the two people that you're going to hear from shortly, my goal for them is to keep them from losing the land or going into heir property status. So that's my message for everyone today, and I'll turn this back to Jamie.
Thanks, Sam. And just for those of you wanting to do a deeper dive into this topic, Sam and Mavis Gregg hosted a webinar for us on this topic that you can find on our YouTube channel. And we'll provide a link in the follow-up emails to that. So what I'm going to attempt to do is share the screen, and we'll watch a short clip from the film in which we learn a little bit more about Nikki and Natalie's situation. So bear with me as I figure this out.
But you still want to get all that cleaned up.
Right.
Still not where I like it to be.
Me either.
Okay. Because if we set a fire here, that's going to be the first place it goes.
Right.
Yeah.
To reduce wildfires, your biggest opportunity is to reduce fuel load. And we do that by doing prescribed burnings.
Say it a little louder for the people in the front. He's up there.
My dad, he's an entrepreneur. He would do jobs cutting trees for people, and he would bring whatever's left over here. Sometimes he'll cut it up for firewood, and sometimes it'll be something that's put on a burn pile. The piles have gotten too massive. We bump heads about that. With him living here and me coming back here to live, all of our disagreements have come about this land.
I spent time on the West Coast, in the Southeast We have the same amount of fires that everyone else has, sometimes more. But what's different is we were able to control it much quicker or get ahead of it. The minute you clear cut, it's in your control.
You know, that's a good seed to plant because it's really a chance for it to be reborn.
For future.
For future.
Yeah.
For future.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're still going. Nikki and Natalie, if you would join me, we would love to hear from you a bit more about that. So we got a little taste of it. And so I'll just turn things over to you. Nikki, do you want to speak first as the older sister?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am Nikki Jefferies. I am the oldest sister, and I'm happy to be here.
Okay.
Natalie?
Natalie, you want to?
I'm Natalie Jefferies. I co-own land with Nikki Jefferies, and we are both advocates of family forest.
Okay. So tell us a little bit, the clip didn't give us that background, how you came to be the owners of the land. For those who watch the film, they'll get this story, and I strongly encourage you to seek out this film. But for today, can you talk about how this land came into your possession?
Do you want to start?
Well, our grandmother, she gave us the land. It's been about 20 years ago, and it was unmanaged until about 2021, whenever we met Sam. And since that time, he has helped us to get on the right track. So before we just had a forest. So we met Sam. He walked with us on the property a little bit, told us some things that we needed to get done. And we actually walked the property for the first time in 2021 after we got a survey completed. So although we grew up on the property, we never explored the forest until recent years.
Okay. And so Nikki, who resides on the property now? Is it you and Natalie, or who?
So right now, I reside on the property, and our dad, he also lives here. So our dad actually was here before I came. So I came back home in the fall of 2020. I came back home to live, and so when I came here, our dad was living here. So that's how it is now.
Okay. And so he was taking care of the property until you came back, and now it's the two of you. Is that correct?
No, I would say he was living here. He was living here whenever I came. The true like taking care of the property. We have done it together, but it has been since I came home, and since we met Sam. And you'll see like the clip that we just saw. It was talking about how our dad, he's an entrepreneur, and so he cuts trees, and we have a nice space where he can bring his leftovers. And so one of the biggest things that we have done is clean the land. Whenever Sam came the first time, he talked to us about the junk that we had in certain places and how we needed to clean it up. And so that was something that actually started before we even met Sam. Before I came home, it was something that my dad had started to work on a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever I came here, it was something that started to move faster, and moved even faster once we learned that we would have a film crew coming around. So that was very helpful.
Yeah, company coming, so you had to clean up. Is that basically what happened with that?
Exactly.
Well, I mean, we get a sense of what needed to be cleaned up. What was the situation and what needed to be cleaned up? And what was the objective of, or objectives behind the cleanup effort?
One of the major things that needed cleaning, our dad, he had a wood pile that was about our height, which was at least 5 feet. It was pretty tall. And it went along the wood line. So whenever the first visit that Sam had, he let us know basically, that's a fire hazard. If the fire was to break out, there's a lot of fuel right there. And as we know, protecting the forest is very important. So that wood line, that was a major challenge, and it caused a lot of
Turmoil.
yes, between my dad and Nikki, because he wanted it done one way, she wanted it done another way, but he was able to get it cleaned up, but that was a really big challenge. I would say that.
It sounds like it was also just a large amount of wood, and so
Very, and
just relocating it was just going to be a lot. It's not like cleaning out your basement, right? So this is multiple days or weeks of hard labor.
yes, and that was his take. And so I think he wanted maybe to wait until like the winter season, whenever part of it would be sold, and we're like, this has to happen quicker. So
So this was discovered basically during what would be potentially fire season for you, that during the drier months.
I
So
think it was, yes.
yeah. Okay. And so you mentioned that the wood pile was up against the tree line, or
And I mean, there was other junk. I mean,
okay.
that's just the word for it. It was
Yeah, I'll add to, honestly, we had both of our parents had things outside. They're both outside people. And there was a season, even whenever our grandma was living on Earth, where our mom, she had some planters and a lot of different nice outside things that need to be tended to, that went a period not being cared for. And so it was a lot of things that needed to be cleaned. And I mean, it was just a lot.
And that's just right around the house. So there's that. And you mentioned, Sam comes into the picture, and we'll bring Sam in here in a few minutes to talk about the role of a forester. In the film, there's discussion of, well, you walk the property and you learn, and there's footage of the two of you with Sam and I'm blanking on the other forester's name. Was it Avery?
Alton Perry. Alton Perry.
Alton Perry. Okay, I kind of mashed up his first and last names and somehow. But so Alton comes out, and Sam are consulting with you. You walk the land, and they're pointing out different tree species and their different values, and there's discussion there. But one of the things Sam mentions is he's kind of giving you a to-do list, as how I interpreted it. And one of, a leading priority is that you need to finish your forest management plan, if I understood correctly. And so I'm wondering if you'd be willing to share some of the objectives or goals of that plan and how that process worked for you. Meaning, as I understand, neither of you have degrees in forestry, so you're learning as you're going. So the question is, what were the objectives and goals? We'll start with that. And how did you arrive at a consensus for them? Go ahead, Nikki.
Our primary objective is to have a healthy forest.
Okay.
And we also would like to do some recreational things. We're still figuring out what that looks like for us. But basically in our forest management plan, it breaks out 3 different areas and it talks about the type of trees and there's a plan of what needs to happen in each area, maybe in 10 years or 20 years. So, Natalie, do you have anything to add?
No.
Well, when you
Honestly,
mentioned,
Sam can go ahead.
I was going to ask, you mentioned recreation, and that means
Mhm.
different things to different people.
Yeah.
And there's another family that's featured in this film, so forgive me if I'm confusing events. I know they had a big Thanksgiving, the Williamses had a big Thanksgiving gathering, but you want to be able to host events on your land. Is that that's part of your recreation plan, or what other, how do you guys define recreation for your land?
Well, that's part of it. We are in a season of discernment to fully determine how we would define it. So some of it we still are discovering. So we don't have the full answer. So one of the things could be in time we would maybe like to have tree houses. We also like to have community events where we invite our family and community, and we always gonna have good food, have a fun time, and just engage with people. Children are a big part of our focus too. So we're in like the planning and big dreaming phase. So it's something that we're still answering ourselves.
Okay, Natalie, you've got a young daughter. How does how to phrase this? How does having a daughter shape your thinking? And by the way, she stole the film. She's just, but so you've got that connection, right? So it starts with your grandmother, and now it's to you, and now you're thinking, and Nikki's thinking about future generations. But you're out there on the land with your daughter who's elementary school age.
Yes.
So can you share a little bit about your thinking on that? And
I can. So my daughter, she's 7, and for those who haven't watched the film, in the beginning, it's revealed that I had some anxiety about the forest. I don't know why, but the first time we walked through there, I was just anxious. So my number one priority is to make sure that I didn't project that onto her. So I didn't want her to be nervous about going in the woods because I'm nervous. So I have to, kind of be chilled, go with my walking stick, stay behind Sam or whoever's leading. So I want her to basically have a relationship with nature where she's not anxious about what's going to happen or what she's going to see. I think that's very important, comfort level number one, so that you're able to enjoy the space. So that's my priority for her right now as a child, to make sure that she creates to create an environment that she enjoys being in. Like, even, so we live about an hour, 15 minutes away. And whenever she's like, we're going to Aunt Nikki's, and I try to explain to her, like, it's our place too. But I'll be like, yes, it's Aunt Nikki's. And so it's certain things that she'll look forward to. Like, she'll know she's going to see her cousins there. She like making s'mores when she go there. So basically just creating experiences that she looks forward to, so that she'll have a connection to the land and want to keep going back as she gets older. So I think, as she gets older, what that looks like will change.
Mhm.
And we also try to involve her in the different activities that we do. Like, a couple months ago, we had a high tunnel installed. So we made sure that she was there to see that happening. She helped do the soil samples. And so just basically keeping her involved on whatever level she is, that she can feel like she's a part of what we're doing.
It sounds like you're going for the heart and the brain simultaneously.
Yes.
To involve her in those two ways, and you can rarely go wrong with s'mores too. So Well, I'm curious, there's conversation in the film about drawing on some private or nonprofit resources as well as some government resources. And I'm wondering if you'd be willing to share some of the organizations or government entities that you've worked with and
Oh,
how
yes.
been helpful.
Excuse me. I forgot to mention, so the high tunnel that we received, we did receive a grant from NRCS to help cover the cost for that.
Would you explain what that is? Because some folks may not know.
I'm gonna let Nikki explain because she'll do a much better job than I will.
Okay.
A hot tunnel is, imagine it's kind of something similar to a greenhouse, but the structure is a lot different. It's plastic, and it's something that allows you to extend your growing season. You can grow year round versus if you're planting directly in the ground. Outside of a hot tunnel, you can only grow certain things, during certain seasons. But a hot tunnel gives you the flexibility to be able to grow year round. So we received that grant from NRCS, and another grant that we have received, we will be getting another forest management plan. The one that we have now was done with the North Carolina Forest Service. So it may be like 5-page max. But now we have the opportunity to have a more in-depth forest management plan with Sam taking the lead on that project. So we'll have more details about our goals and objectives in the next iteration of our forest management plan.
Okay. And so you talked about being able to grow year round. What is it that you're growing?
Right now we haven't started growing inside of the hot tunnel. We do need to get the county extension to come to help us with certain things before we start growing inside of it. But my dad has planted a garden outside of the hot tunnel, and he has corn, okra, peppers.
Okay, so it's
Beans,
vegetables. You're not growing.
yes.
It's vegetables. Are you growing tree seedlings for? Has that been part? Is that in the conversation of growing your own timber stock?
We do have that. So most of our land is forested.
Okay.
So we have maybe about 36 acres and 34 of it is forested. So so another part we haven't even talked to them about is maybe doing a clear cut for a large area so that we can be in control of the type of trees that we have and know the outcome when it's time to harvest versus what we have now is what our family always had, but we didn't have the knowledge to know how you can, just like you can plant a row of okra, you can plant a stand of a certain type of tree.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to be more strategic in really managing the forest versus, trying to make what we have better in certain areas. Let's just start over.
Right. So a more methodical approach to it versus going in and remove. There's selection cutting, but there's deliberate selection cutting, but in a way you're trying to get the forest on a better footing for long-term management. Is that
Yes.
one of the objectives?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And are there other resources that you're drawing on? And I'll mention you went in the film, you go over and visited the Williamses, correct? So it looked like a mentoring, maybe a mentoring relationship was forming. I don't know if that's correct, the correct characterization, but so I think Sam has introduced you into this community of heirs property or property owners who are learning how this goes. Are you talking with the Williams family and others and learning from those who are doing?
Yeah, so
yes.
Tara and the Williams are our mentors. We actually visited with them about a week ago.
Okay.
So that's a constant. It wasn't just for the film. They're amazing farmers, and they have been teaching us a lot. Actually, while we were visiting with them this past week, Tyrone shared with us 2 or 3 grant opportunities for us to apply for. We haven't applied yet, but he does a really good job of keeping us abreast of different funds that's available for farmers and providing examples, guidance as far as like what they have done in the past to help us increase our chances of getting approved. So that has been a very beneficial relationship for us.
Okay. And because folks don't know, the Williamses they're part of the American Tree Farm System, and their tree farm is called 4T, F-O-U-R, because there are three sons and Tyrone, so that's 4T. He breaks it down in the film. I'm not going to do it, but it's F-O-U-R-T-E-E. And it's
Acres.
Acres, thank you. And it's very clever. The name works in many ways, the puns. And I had the opportunity to meet with them. They came to the Forest History Society to talk about how to trace out the land title and all. So I had an opportunity to meet them. And you do meet them in the film, and their story is also quite fascinating. So in addition to them, are there others in the community that have been resources for you?
Yes, we actually have met some other people through them. They are the primary ones though, and also I want to say hello to them. They are on this webinar right now with us. So shout out to Tyrone and Edna. We have met another couple through them that we matter of fact, last weekend I spent a night with Tyrone and Edna, and Tyrone took me to another family. They have a lot of things that they're doing in Halifax County too, with the Airbnb and creating a glamping site, luxury camping and tiny homes. So yes, we have met some other people that are just as enthusiastic about their land as we are.
That's great. Well, Sam, let's bring you in. First of all, can you shed a little more light on the forest management plan process? Not necessarily the objectives that Nikki and Natalie have, but just how it worked, the process that you walked them through.
Yeah, Jamie, and I'm glad that we were able to present this and spend some time talking about it, because I think I read a question in the chat box or somewhere that asked, were Nick and Natalie somewhat afraid to go in the woods prior to me showing up? A piece of that had to do, I think Nikki was already involved in the woods and walking and talking and looking for things. You can tell Natalie was a little shy and took a little time, but I think she told the right story, that her daughter gave her the courage to step out into that space. I call her daughter my little forest technician, because she spent all the time walking in the woods with us, and she kind of stayed along with no problem, with no fear. But as we look at our relationship as professionals in this wood business, and we kept the things that I approach Nikki and Natalie on is thinking about what we do as foresters as being technical. By we collecting the data, we assess the timber, we also assess what's going on the land. All those things were explained to them throughout this process. Alvin and I spent probably a full afternoon, not just being filmed, but really going through the things that we do when we go in the woods. We talked about land management, how we carry out the projects such as tree planting, monitoring for wildlife, habitat control, or just even preparing a timber plot to ensure what is actually out there. Conservation, not many people think about that, but it's very important when we look at forest fire suppression, the resources that need to be managed for timber, and also anything to do with insect and disease control. All of these things we pointed out along the way as we did our walks. The ecological restoration, you heard them talking about they want to do some on the land around recreation, whether it's public or just for family use. One of the most important things I told them is take a look at the land, what we've walked through, identify those areas that you feel comfortable that this is where you want to hold it. Then let's put out stakes, map it out, so when we get ready to do the forest management plan, we'll know to include that as a different stand related to what we want to do across the rest of the tract. If they decide to do anything around forest management, as cutting trees or anything like that, we talked about contractors, talked about how we deal with budgets and who need to supervise and who else need to provide other technical advice to helping them to plan timber management. That was phase one. But to me, the most important piece that I think came in phase two, introducing them to the players. And when I say players, organizations who are out here educating landowners, such as those in the Sustainable Forestry Land Retention Network. You have about 8 across the South organizations that working differently across what landowners need to learn about forest management, but also owning land. So we did some work with them, not just in the center of Heirs, but mainly connected them real close to Roanoke Electric since they tied into North Carolina. Then from there, they got to meet other landowners that were doing different things as it relates to owning land and managing land. And you heard about Tyrone and his wife and family. That was a connecting point for them. If they had questions, they came back to me and we talked about, here are some people that may be doing X or Y or Z. Let me refer you to them. But they took off in phase 3 by now taking what they've learned, applying it to the land, and ensuring that they go seek other advice or knowledge before they move forward. But they have taken advantage of everything that we've been able to provide to them as research and technical advice. And I will pat them on the back. If I had every landowner just like them, our world would change from the standpoint that they know how to listen, but also they know how to learn and they react and act.
That's really good advice there at the end. It's because there's everything to learn, including what I guess recognizing what you don't know, the limits of your knowledge, and then it sounds like part of the process too is educating any landowner on who you can talk to, because one of the issues landowners face are, especially when it comes to timber harvesting or the predatory practitioners, if you will. Sorry, you look like you wanted to jump
No, it's
in.
that, but also trust.
Yeah.
It's always good for people to invite people to come visit their land, especially when we look at ourselves as foresters. They didn't know me, I didn't know them. I was referred to them. But just the referral is still not the trust factor. I had to go out and demonstrate to them that I deserve to be trusted and I'm gonna be there for you. And then my job is to refer them to others who are also in this space. And then they have to figure out, can I trust them as well? I became a sounding board to them.
One of the, at one point in the film, or at several points in the film, you talk about what a forester does and does not do for a landowner. And in the film, you say something like, as a forester, I'm not here to take what you have. I'm here to grow what you have. And so I was wondering if you could, well, I think you were just elaborating on the role of a forester in helping landowners deal with the property issues. But in addition to Nikki and Natalie, do you have an example or two of a success story from your own personal experience? And then if flipping that question around, what are some of the other issues that cause problems for landowners? So if you could share a success story or two, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, I will say I have many success stories, but I'll spend time talking about one that's very near and dear to my heart. And it was from a project in South Carolina. We had 4 female landowners as sisters working on about 267 acres. All their homes were also on the land. They had clear title, but they were trying to figure out how to get a timber sale done. One of the sisters needed money for just the restructure of the house. She in turn sold 20 acres of timber, but did not tell the other 3 sisters. The lead sister, who came to me was talking about. She wanted to do the timber sale. Someone offered them $90,000 for the timber growing on 267 acres. And a week later, someone came back and offered $190,000. So when she approached me, she says, the main reason I reached out to you is I heard you talk about this at one of your workshops, is do not sell to just anyone who come knock on your door. So she came to my office, we sat around the table, just her, not the other three sisters. So she explained that process, and I said, if you can give me about a week or two and I can get some others involved, we'd love to come visit your property, sit around the table with the rest of the family, and at least talk to you about the different options. She did. She invited us. I brought another consultant with me. We sat around the table, we listened, we talked about the next steps of how we assess the timber, everything we talked about earlier as a forester. But most importantly, what this consultant can do for you to help give you a true evaluation, but also to see what the financial impact will be and how it can demonstrate that that can work for you. So, long story short, they ended up with $467,000 in income from the timber sale. They paid the consultant 10%. We asked the question at the end, what was the better outcome? They said, this last deal. I said, great. I introduced them to NRCS. They signed up to get financial assistance program through them under the EQIP program, Environmental Quality Incentive. They were able to reforest the entire property for less than $110,000, and they made money off of the reforestation efforts. So the true, I call impact to this is, one, providing enough knowledge for people to make a decision, but demonstrating to them that there's a better way to look at it, but you got to take time to do it. So we also had to tell them that the other sister who took the money for the $20,000 to turn it back in, because we just sold the entire 267 acres. Another key point that I want to consider with the family and going forward, people need to talk, whether you have heir property or clear title. You need to take time and think about your objectives and what the true outcome of what you want to do. And most importantly, strategize around, here's where I want to take this, and find someone that will be a professional that you can bring in and work with you to give you advice. Our job is to tell you what to do, but to sell you on the options and the opportunity to say, here's what I think I want to do going forward. And I'll throw this question at Natalie and Nikki. Have you been getting that from me and Alton?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
So one of the things that is clear in the film and in my reading is that at the foundation, the best way to move forward is that there is clear communication among all parties, and the communication not just about what is happening, but intent as well. As you just talked about, where there are these side conversations, if you will, that can lead people down the wrong roads. And that's well, there's a forest management plan, and then there's the family management plan, if you will. And if you're going to manage your family with the objective of the family remaining intact, and we all have family members that we love, but sometimes we clash with. If you want to do like a forester and look beyond, look to the future, look beyond those, spot those points of possible conflict, and keep your eye on the bigger objective, the long-term objective, then a lot of this will go more smoothly for folks. And it does certainly seem like Natalie and Nikki are doing a great job of communicating, but they're also wise enough in their forgive me, you're wise enough in your youth to know that looking to mentors and experts will also help with things. We do have some questions. I think So we'll start with the softball for Natalie and Nikki. Have you identified a favorite plant or animal on your property?
We
Have not.
well, we do have a favorite tree. It's called a white willow tree. I think it's a white willow tree that we both really love. Favorite animal? No. We probably won't get to a favorite animal.
If you're planting vegetables and the like, it's your favorite animals, the ones that don't get into the garden. Natalie, does your daughter have a favorite tree or critter that she's found on the property?
No critters. I'll have to check about the tree, but definitely she is not into critters
Okay.
unless we're talking butterflies.
Okay. You can always plant a butterfly bush and see what happens. I have a question that let's see. Well, it's for all three of you, and it's how can foresters make things more comfortable for landowners who are going into the woods for the first time, or in those initial forays? Like Natalie, you were kind enough to share that going into the woods made you anxious. Quick tip: never be the first person walking through, but if you are, hold your walking stick out to get the cobwebs, so you're not the one getting the cobweb in the face. But my trick is always to go behind put the tallest person out front so they get the cobwebs. But Sam, if you could talk a little bit about that, but also Natalie and Nikki, if you could share how, especially Natalie, how you worked through that anxiety about being out in the woods. And maybe it's just doing it more and more, that exposure reduces the anxiety. But Sam, how do you get people comfortable out there?
I think for me, I pick on Nikki in a way. Natalie, I think, from the standpoint, I can tell she was very nervous when we started. She also admitted it up front. And she probably didn't notice that, but every time I showed up, I constantly got right in front of her, talked to her, gave her jokes around what's going on in the woods, told her never be the last one because the snake's going to follow you or be the one to get to you. Always try to be in the middle because spider webs tend to get the first person, and to keep distance. And everyone is different, but I think we must recognize fear early on and start making people comfortable. The other way I approach it is we don't go deep the first time. We stay around the edges. We walk in, we walk back out.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk through things and say, here's what you look for when you're in the woods. I started hiking with one person one day, and first day we were out there, there's two friends of mine, and they just took off in the woods and just kept walking. So finally I stopped and I sat down, and they came back to me and they said, what's up? You tired? I said, not tired, but I said, I noticed y'all you never stop and look up.
Mm-hmm.
They said, we didn't realize we needed to. I said, sit right here and take the time and look up, listen to everything around you, and embrace what this is offering to you today. Now I have to rush them to get through the woods because they were able to see the woods different than just running through there saying I'm hiking. So getting to know your people that you take to the woods and making sure you make it comfortable for them, because most likely we already comfortably go in there because we wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say, Sam did a very good job of answering that question. The first time we went in there, all inside, that was very helpful because it's like, what you like about this space? So I'm like, I'm good. He's like, what do you like best? I was like, the shade. And so, I mean, because it was hot outside. And so just knowing his background and that, I mean, he knows forestry, so I mean, that's just a given. But also the talking and communication, okay, he knows I'm anxious, but he just handled it in a very good way. Slow entry was key, I believe. That was definitely very important. And also, I think just being there is kind of like if you can get someone in the forest and we're here, you realize, okay, you're safe. Basically, it's the same thing, just multiplied over, all these acres. So I think that was it.
Just sort of a slow introduction and reintroduction and building confidence, it sounds like, too.
Yes, it sounded like a force coach.
For the three of you, James Williams asks if you could give one piece of advice to other African-American families looking to manage rural family land, what would you tell them? And since Natalie, I'm just going to turn right back to you and ask if you had single piece of advice for a family.
I would say, reach out to trusted individuals. I mean, Google is your friend. You can learn a lot about someone's background. Reach out to people who are already in the industry. One thing I found is that the community is very friendly. People are happy to share information. And I think that's very important that you connect with people that have your best interest at heart.
Okay. Nikki?
I would say go there. Like go there as much as you can. And that's very important. Like you need to, like, especially if you have been disconnected from the place, you have to find a way to connect yourself back to the place so that you can do what needs to be done for the land. And if you can't go, you need to find the closest person in the family who can go.
Okay. And Sam, we'll finish with you. I know we're up against the clock. What's your piece of advice?
For people trying to reconnect with the land,
Yes.
I find that over my last few years of being in this space deeper than I've ever been before, find trusted organizations that are out there doing this work. Go look for people that you can gain knowledge from. But you kind of need to build trust, but you got to also have people where you earn trust. And one key aspect of what I like to do is I want to be the messenger, but I also want to refer to others so they can become the messengers.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to tell all my clients, friends, or whomever that want to get reconnected, you need to also do your homework. I may send you to someone, but I'm not telling you to go there and trust them. I'm sending you there to listen and learn based on how I've worked with you in the past. It's up to you to judge whether or not you're going to get something from them or not. And they will tell you, I question everywhere I send them to find out their outcome and did they receive what they needed from them. And if not, we look for other trusted sources.
Okay. Well, Sam, Nikki, and Natalie, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your experiences. We really appreciate it.